Welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about, do medical coders have to learn medical billing? If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay, guys. So if you are learning medical billing and coding and you're saying, well, I don't really want to do billing. I have never done billing, but I have had to learn about billing. One of the fundamental things that we do learn as medical coders in school is about reimbursement. We have to learn about the reimbursement cycle because we don't know where we're going to be working and we don't know what our job duties are going to be if we're just out there just applying for any job. Now, I have never been a biller, but I have worked closely with billers. And the reason that it is so important for us to know about billing is because as we are selecting these codes, some of these codes are insurance specific. And that goes to the revenue cycle, okay? You knowing about that is going to help you to understand that. For example, like Medicare, in order to bill for colonoscopies, for example, colonoscopies are in the CPT manual, but if you are reporting for Medicare, you're using a G code that comes from the HCPCS Level 2 manual. So there's a difference there. You're not going to report the other colonoscopy code in the CPT book because revenue cycle lets us know, hey, this is for a Medicare patient and we're going to have to report this G code. So knowing that is going to help us to be able to select the codes properly. The other thing is sometimes when you are coding, there's going to be a cap for certain insurances that they're only going to cover X amount, right? For example, the allergy testing, okay? Some insurances will only cover up to like 80 tests, and maybe the provider did 100 tests. So that's something that you have to understand as the coder, okay? Because when you're looking at the documentation, are they documenting all the things that they did? And if you know, hey, this insurance only covers up to these 80, well, we know that that's what we're going to be reporting. We're not going to be over-reporting because a certain insurance company will only pay up to a certain amount, okay? And the doctors should know that, but sometimes they don't. So again, that's why revenue cycle and the coding will come in and educate, okay? So that way that they know, all right? So with that said, the 4 main medical coding certifications that employers look for: the CCS, the gold standard of medical coding credentials; the CCA, the CCSP, that is the Certified Coding Specialist Physician Base. These 3 are with the American Health Information Management Association. Then there's the CPC, the Certified Professional Coder, and that is with AAPC, the American Academy of Professional Coders. Employers are looking for one of these. All you need is one. You do not need to be certified through both associations. Okay, that's just repeating your credential, all right? Because all 4 of these exams all cover reimbursement. Just because you learn reimbursement does not mean you have to be a biller. As I've said previously in other videos, I have been a medical coder for 17 years. And in that time, I have never done billing. But I do know about billing, because it is very important when you are a coder to know about the revenue cycle. It's very important that you know about the billing. You may not know all the intricate details, but you do need to know enough. It's just like when I hear billers who say, well, I don't really know about the coding side. You should. That's a big part of what you do as a biller, is because you're going to be able to catch you're the last line of defense, so you're going to be able to catch errors before they leave you. If you know the coding, a biller who knows coding is going to see, hey, this is missing a modifier, or this is missing this code, or the sequencing is off for this scenario, whatever the case may be. So that's where we have to know about each other. That's where it pays and it helps for us to know about each other, okay? We do not code based on money, okay? And the biller is supposed to bill what is correct, what we have selected, and what we have gotten from this documentation accurately, and that's what they're supposed to be submitting. But sometimes the person who is a biller is also the coder. So that in that instance, having a knowledge of billing does help you. All right. And sometimes the person who does the coding only does the coding, like me, right? I don't do billing. Somebody else does billing, okay? And if something happens where a claim gets denied, they'll bounce it back to whoever the coder is, whoever coded that particular record. They'll bounce it back to them and say, this was denied, please review. And so they'll look at it again, and just figure out whatever went wrong, okay? And then sometimes the coder will have to explain to the biller, who can put it into the note or whatever that they're going to send to the insurance company, because they have to do like where I forget what it's called. Why did I just blank? It's when they're trying to do a rebuttal letter of like why those codes fit or whatever the case may be. I just had it at the tip of my tongue. I've been I've been running all day, so yeah, but you get the idea, okay? Basically, the biller is writing to say that this is the reason why that this code was selected and this kind of thing. Here's the evidence, okay? So with that said, that is why it's important that we learn about billing, okay? Because you are only going to know part of the story if you don't know all of it. So you do need to know all of it. It's like when I tell CDIs, my CDI nurses, when I tell them that they need to know about coding, some of them get upset because they don't see the point. I'm looking for holes in the documentation, Blue. Yes, but you are also that middle person between the coder and the provider. And you need to understand what the coder is saying, because that's where the hang up comes in, is that sometimes these providers are doing what they think is correct and something is missing. There's a detail that keeps having to get queried because the coder it's not there. It's not there in the documentation. We cannot pick up what is not there. But that CDI, knowing that coding piece, is going to know, oh yes, there is something missing here, other than just seeing this documentation that is not, there appears to be no errors here from the way that they look at it, but from the coding standpoint, it's not giving the depth of the injury. It's not giving, whatever the case may be, that detail that is missing. And that's why it's important for CDIs to know about coding. It may not be an industry requirement, but it doesn't mean that you don't need to know. In the case of the coder needing to know about billing, it is a requirement, because we do have revenue cycle on all of these exams. Any one of these exams you take, you cannot get away from it. It is going to be specific to CCS, CCA, CCSP, or CPC, okay? That exam will all cover revenue cycle. So again, just because you learn it doesn't mean you have to do it, all right? But that's just one thing that you do need to know. A lot of things that we have to know as coders may not make sense, especially in the beginning, because like I even get people who say, well, Blue, do I have to learn about pathophysiology? Why do I have to learn about pathophysiology? I just want to be a coder. My friend, when you are selecting codes, you know that there are some instances where you're not going to pick up symptoms. It's different from manifestations, right? Like if you have an injury and then that injury, there's a manifestation of it, right? You break your toe, your big toe, and your nail does not come back, right? You have nail dystrophy, right? Because you broke your toe and it damaged the nail. And so now this is a sequela, right? And so you would put that nail dystrophy and you would put all of that because that's a manifestation of that injury. Or it's the same thing with the scar. If the person was stabbed and they have a scar and it's a painful scar now, the laceration has healed, but the scar is still very painful. That's a manifestation of that injury. So that's a sequela. That's when we would do that. Or if they say, well, I broke my wrist and I'm having pain in my wrist, that is a manifestation. That pain is a manifestation of that fracture. If there's a correlation of that relationship between the fracture and that pain in the wrist. So in those instances, that's when we would pick those things up together. But when we have something like the common cold, and the person is also coming in with, let's just say, okay, let me go this way. One second. Let's just go with this one. Bronchitis, right? Person comes in, they have coughing. They've been coughing, they have fever. And then the provider does their test, they end up with bronchitis. They say, okay, they've been diagnosed with bronchitis. Are you going to pick up the fever and the coughing? No, because those are symptoms of the bronchitis. And how would you know that? Because you know your pathophysiology. What is pathophysiology? It is a study of disease. So that's why it's important to know those things. Blue, why do I have to learn about medical terminology? I just want to be able to look up codes. Your knowing medical terminology is going to help you to understand the difference between some of these words. Coracoid and coronoid. I talked about this, right? And there's also laparoscopy and laparotomy. Two completely different things, right? But just the suffix of that word changed the meaning. And you learn that in medical terminology. So that's why I'm telling you guys that even though it doesn't make sense, and sometimes people think, oh yeah, you could just cut corners and you don't need to learn anatomy, you don't need to learn medical terminology. That's such bull, you know what I mean? Like, really? You want what you're reading to make sense. And it's going to look so foreign sometimes. Sometimes I'm looking at, I'm an orthopedic and podiatry coder. It's primarily where I work. I can do anything, okay? I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid of anything. Trust me, I'm not afraid of anything when it comes to coding. I can do anything because it's just what I love to do, right? But when I'm looking at some of these documents, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and as I'm reading a lot of it, I'm like, okay, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is. And some of them like, oh, I don't know what that is. Let me look that up. Still to this day. But a lot of what I read, I understand. And because I understand it, I can interpret it. And this just comes from years of experience. But had I always said, oh no, I don't need to learn medical terminology, I don't need to learn anatomy, then it's always going to be confusing. That's why you need to learn these things. Because everything is integrated, including the billing. So that's why it's important that even though you don't do billing, you still need to understand. Now, as far as like filling out the forms and things like that, that's more on the billing side. You just need to know, you just need to have a good idea of it, right? Because in case you're tested on it in your exam, you want to make sure that you understand that part at least, you know? And it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt for you to have this knowledge, because at the end of the day, when it's you and the provider, that provider is going to see you as a subject matter expert. They are going to expect for you to know the answers to their questions. And even if you don't, because there's going to be things that you don't know, but you're always going to say, let me look that up. You never tell a provider, oh, I don't know. You're always going to tell them, let me look that up and I'll get right back to you. And get right back to them. Because now you're learning something too. And if it is a billing question, and you know that somebody in the billing department, that's their wheelhouse, then you tell them, hey, can you speak with this provider? They have a question. I wonder what's going on out there. But you go talk to them. You go and, you know, the person who does the billing can work it out with them. And sometimes they may not even know, because sometimes they look at you and they think, oh, this is the biller coder. We are two different people. We are sometimes two different people, but sometimes we are the same person. So they don't know. Okay? And that's why we need to make sure that we are educated. It's like when you are working with the electronic health record as well. Providers will ask me, hey, Blue, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this, or navigate this. It's not my training, right? I don't know. We are still learning this electronic health record. I do not like the electronic health record we are working in, and no, I will not mention who it is. It is not Epic, though. I will say that it is not Epic. But I don't like it because it is not intuitive. But the things that I have learned and picked up along the way from other providers, I've been able to help other providers. So that does help. I wish they would give us training like they did previously. Previously, in the previous electronic health record, which there was nothing wrong with the previous electronic health record. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Whatever. I don't make those decisions. But if I did, I would definitely say it's a time saver, our previous electronic health record. And not only that, I knew the steps to go. I knew, and we didn't have to go and ask any trainer to come in because I had already gotten that training. So I already knew how to help them. And it wasn't, there's something about being able to reach out to somebody and say, hey, can you help me with this? And that person says, yes, I can help you with that, because they go above and beyond to figure some of that stuff out. Well, a lot of the stuff that we learn as coders, we're learning other stuff along the way. And it's good to have those feathers in our cap. So because that promotes goodwill, because the coder that can be asked, hey, do you know about how do we navigate in this? And you've been paying attention and you know how to do that. Well, now you look like a genius to these providers that are asking you that question. And you're never somebody who says, well, I don't know. There's nothing more aggravating than that. When you need help and somebody says, well, I don't know, and no effort to try to learn anything. Okay? So while they're not going to, once they know what your role is as a coder, okay, they're not going to expect you to spout off all these things about billing. They can direct those to the billers. But at least you have a rough idea. You have an understanding of like, okay, certain insurances, we got to do this. And certain insurances that, and that's all part of the billing side, But the academic part of it that you are going to be quizzed on and questioned about, that's going to help you to understand, okay, like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it now. And so that's why we have to learn those things, because it completes the puzzle. It completes the picture. Medical coding does not exist in a vacuum. It is part of a big picture that includes revenue cycle, that includes data quality, that includes, records management. It's everything. It's everything. Even my degree holders, my people who have the associate's degree or people who have the bachelor's degree, my folks there, they also understand this, that coding is just a small portion, right? Coding is just a small portion of those programs. And I get the question a lot too of, Blue, I want to take the RHIT, or I'm in the associate's degree program. And do I need to get the CCS? Well, that means that they have to learn about the coding, which means they have to learn about revenue cycle, which revenue cycle is already part of the associate's degree program. It's already part of the bachelor's degree program for health information. So that's the thing. It's just completing the whole picture. And those people who get associate's degrees or who get bachelor's degrees, a lot of them do not go on to be billers. Some of them do. I am on LinkedIn and I have a big audience there as well. And I have some that are billers and they have their degrees because that is taught in the school, right? But also the coding is also taught in the school too. So for you to get a degree and also to get the CCS, for example, is a good thing, because this completes the picture. This says that not only are you displaying competence in like the managerial side of the house or the technical side of the house, as far as like, with the laws and everything, or, with revenue cycle, you are also demonstrating that knowledge with the coding, which also tests you on reimbursement, which means that you're going to understand what it means with these terms and things like that. When we think about like the DRGs and MSDRGs, right? The diagnosis related group, that's a whole other conversation. But, coders know about that. And that translates over to dollars on the revenue side. So that's why it's all interconnected. So yes, while it may seem like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do billing, you don't have to. I like I said, I've been a coder for 17 years, and not one day have I ever done billing. Not one day. Okay. That's not my wheelhouse. I know it. Could I get better at it? Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe in myself completely. I can do anything, okay? As should you. As should you. But we want to make sure that when we are educating ourselves that we are putting in the time. We are doing all of those things so that we can get better at these subjects. And so while that may not be what we know, it doesn't mean that we can't educate ourselves, okay? And even though the stuff doesn't make sense, that you have to learn, why do you have to learn this? We need to just go with it and quit trying to push back against it, because that pushback is only going to hurt you. It is not going to hurt the people who are trying to train you, because they already have their jobs. They are trying to help you to be better. Because here's the thing, this is at the end of the day, this is what it is all about. Y'all are the next generation of medical coders and revenue cycle technicians, medical billers. Y'all are the next generation. This is I'm speaking to the next generation. I've got almost 2 decades in. I'm speaking to the next generation. We always have to level up. Always. So just because that's not in my job description, that's not in my job description, that's garbage talk. Garbage talk, okay? We have to learn it. For all of it to make sense, we have to learn it, okay? And so it goes back to learning your pathophysiology. It goes back to learning about the revenue cycle. It goes back to all of that. And for my people that are getting their degrees, yes, you do need to get a certification in medical coding, because a lot of times some of these employers, they will say we would like the person to have a degree and a medical coding certification. Why do they say that? Because this says, a degree says that you can be in a place and you can complete something, which is fantastic, right? Because that means that person's going to be less flighty, right? Which really and truly, anybody without a degree who can be less flighty too, you know. But the thing about it is, when you look at the long run picture, and you're looking at who can deliver the most for us, this is what they are thinking, okay? And so, but don't let the fact that you don't have a degree discourage you, okay, guys? Don't. Because many people have gone their entire careers, very successful careers, without degrees, okay? So it's not always necessary. Degrees are only for when you want to be in leadership. If you do not want to be in leadership, if you do not want to educate or teach, you do not need a degree, okay? You do not need a degree. I'll do that on another video. But all I'm saying is this, guys, is that if it's part of your program, this is what you do need to learn. You will pick up other things along the way that will help you. Because after a while, you'll learn it's not just the coding that you have to get better at. It's the public speaking. It's the writing. It is your reading comprehension. Everything will get better over time. But you have to put in efforts. And you have to stop being like, well, wait a second. Do I have to? Do I have to? Yes, you do. Because it's going to make it easier for you. And you know, I'm trained in theater, right? But I did have to work on public speaking, because even though public speaking is not part of my medical billing and coding program that I took, it is something that was a necessity, because it is part of the work that I do, right? And you'll learn those things along the way. And even though you say, well, no, Blue, I'm shy, I didn't get into this so that I could be up there and perform. Not everybody does it, but you do need to be prepared to do it, because sometimes they'll seek you out. Some of these doctors will surprise you, and they'll seek you out, and they'll be like, hey, can you help us with this? And you can't say, well, no, I don't do that. That's not my job. Oh, no, because that's when you start to lose their confidence, and we want to be able to gain their confidence. And how do you gain confidence? By learning everything, okay? And a step at a time, guys. No need to get overwhelmed. You will learn it a step at a time, okay? So with that said, hopefully this answers that question. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.